One of my works is called Designer Sneaker, Floral Silk. It's a fabric replica of a designer shoe, which I embroidered by hand. It's made of silk and canvas. Another work is called Designer Sneaker Porcelain with Crystals, which is a replica of a designer shoe made of porcelain clay, which I glazed by hand with an antique pattern. Another work is called Objects 2, 7, 11, 10, 3, and 14, I think, in that order, or not. And it's 7 separate ceramic pieces. They're all pretty much palm size, all displayed on their own plinth, made of various different kinds of clay and porcelain and different found objects as well. For my textile work, I was thinking about the luxury industry, particularly luxury fashion, and thinking about how that definition has changed. I was reading Economic Theory by a man called Thorstein Veblen, where he describes luxury dress at the end of the Victorian era, and he talks about 3 defining principles of, I think, novelty, ineptitude, and excess. I was looking at the court of Versailles and the immense wealth that's portrayed through the clothing, and then at the contemporary luxury industry, and trying to synthesize the two and think about how we've progressed from one to another. I found online a book of fabric samples that belong to Marie Antoinette with beautiful pieces of silk and lots of kind of exotic fabrics found from across the world, which she used to decorate the palace and decorate her own clothing. I applied that to an object of contemporary luxury, which was a designer sneaker by Alessandro Michele for Gucci. With my porcelain piece, also a shoe, I was looking at a luxury porcelain house from the 1700s called Meissen. They make Delftware, which is blue and white ceramic patterns, and specifically the onion pattern, which samples Asian ceramics and mixes them with the kind of French and Dutch styles. Again, I applied that to a contemporary item of luxury significance, which was the same designer shoe. For my third work, I was reading my grandfather's PhD on architecture and interior design and considering how his own practice, which consisted of making miniature models, how that was reflected in my own art making processes and how that's informed my own sense of self as an artist. And in that, I looked a lot at the beginning towards items and memories of personal significance, which began as very kind of literal translations, very, I guess, figurative translations into painting or ceramics, whether it was an object or a photo. And then over the course of the year became more abstract. So I was thinking about different architects that I admired, such as Frank Lloyd Wright or Le Corbusier, and then also my favorite fashion designers, particularly with the idea of the collection, which is reflected in the sequence of 7 works in my final piece, and the deconstructionalist designers and their ideas around what material is and then how to pull it apart and rebuild it, which for me is important to my ceramic and sculptural processes. I cast the porcelain bases myself. I created a mold out of wood and then inserted different found pieces of wood or metal into that I'd collected from my grandfather's materials. The most challenging aspect for me was working within the requirements of VCE. They don't meet my own personal practice very well, and so adapting to that process of constant documentation was difficult, especially doing that from home. I think that was also very rewarding and has been instrumental in teaching me how to adapt myself to new environments or different creative restrictions. The access to materials was also pretty difficult. Then again, I think that ended up in a far more interesting outcome than I'd expected or hoped.